For almost 3 decades now, I've been studying the impact of trade treaties on different societies around the world. For the last 20 years, I've worked with a group of economists, activists, writers from every continent. And what we have found is that the deregulation of trade and finance, which is happening under the auspices of free trade treaties, including the European Union, the GATT, and today, most recently, the TPP. These treaties are having a very similar effect worldwide. Because they are about giving more freedom, deregulating the movement of corporations and banks, their activities worldwide. They are the biggest threat to democracy. What's happened is that through trade treaties, governments are giving more freedom to these giant banks and corporations that then, as they become larger and larger, as they mega merge into giants, are able to blackmail countries, saying, if you don't give us the cheapest labor, the cheapest resources, the biggest infrastructure, we'll go elsewhere. This is why we are now facing the crisis we're facing, particularly the financial crisis. But this crisis is linked to the destruction of small farmers worldwide, to the destruction of small businesses of every kind worldwide, with the destruction of thousands, actually millions, of smaller businesses. We are also losing the opportunity for meaningful work for the global population. Things are being concentrated in the hands of bigger and bigger giant corporations and in bigger and bigger cities. This is part of this process of deregulating trade, the destruction of farmers and mass urbanization and a scarcity of jobs. As people are pulled into bigger and bigger sprawling cities, looking for jobs that are more and more scarce, this is one of the main reasons for depression, for all kinds of mental illness and anxiety, particularly in our young people. It's also a major cause of ethnic and religious conflict and violence. Fundamentalism, racism are also increasing as people see their livelihoods, their communities, their cultures threatened by outsiders. And this is a global problem. We can find it in almost every country, from the least developed to the most developed. It's vital at this time that we start looking beyond our multiple crises. As we know, the financial crisis is accompanied by a crisis of global warming, climate chaos, weather more and more unstable and unpredictable. It's accompanied by a loss of species. Every day we're losing species. And it's going hand in hand with the loss of languages, the loss of cultural identity. These crises are linked. They're linked to the economic system, and at the center of the economic system are the trade treaties. So the very last thing we need to do now is to ratify another treaty. So please do your best to get informed and speak out against the ratification of the TPP. Inform yourself and others as an activism. You will find that in the media, in mainstream academia, in most available sources, easily available sources of knowledge and information, you will not find this critique. But there are scholars, there are economists who have been trained at Harvard, at Stanford, at Oxford, who for decades have been writing books, raising awareness about the fact that marching towards bigger and bigger mega merged corporations through the deregulation of trade is taking the whole planet in the wrong direction. It is also these giant corporations that are responsible for the import and export of identical products worldwide. Not only are we importing and exporting water and milk and live animals, more and more you have apples flown across the world from the UK to South Africa to be washed and waxed and flown back again. You have fish flown from Norway to China to be deboned. There are countless other examples. This is where the great need for energy is, in this wasteful, totally irresponsible trade. We need to realize that the people who are promoting this, the governments and the big corporations, are not necessarily aware of the total impact of what they do. Because they also are not reading the books and the analyses from the grassroots, from those people who've been made invisible. So let's not create an angry movement. Let's remain wise and compassionate, but very clear about what we need to do and what we don't need to do. I feel very empowered by the knowledge that there is an alternative that is called localization, that has to do with rebuilding the fabric of connection between people where they live, establishing again a relationship between the farmer and the consumer, between the smaller business and the local needs. That rebuilding of the local economy is happening. It is proving that it is possible to simultaneously increase productivity, particularly vis-à-vis land and scarce resources. When we localize, we encourage farmers to diversify. When they grow a range of different things, they can dramatically increase productivity and at the same time reduce the ecological footprint, the damage. So it's an amazing win-win strategy. Increasing productivity and reducing environmental pollution and impact, and increasing profit to the farmer while you reduce the cost of fresh, healthy food to the consumer. Perhaps most importantly, the localization movement helps us reconnect to one another in the regions where we live. It helps to rebuild a live culture where everyone has a voice, where everyone is seen and heard, and where everyone knows they can depend on each other. That is fundamental to our well-being, to our sense of joy and meaning in life. Just as important is the reconnection to the natural world, to the trees around us, to the life that we are a part of. But in the modern, competitive, urban situation, we have lost touch with that fundamental truth of our inextricable interdependence with the natural world. Through the localization movement, we are creating a way of living where our daily lives allow us to have more of that contact with the living world and with one another. And this is why I call localization the economics of happiness.